Hi, I'm Debbie Braun, president of the Aspen Chamber Resort Association, and you're watching this edition of Aspen Affairs. Yep, it's true. I've said it once, I've said it twice. This is my fourth time now. It's election season, and it's actually local election season, and it's so incredibly important to make sure that your voice is heard. So I want to remind everybody that the local election is on March 7th, and that the ballots are mailed out on February 14th. Leading up to the election, ACRA has invited all the candidates for the council and the mayor's seat to come on in and to sort of just share with us what their campaign platforms are. So I am happy to say I'm here with Bill Guth. Hi, Bill.
Hi.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for running for local office. I think it takes a village of different perspectives and different voices to come together to run this town. So I always love when I see people getting involved. Why don't you just go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're running?
Sure. Thank you again. So I've been in Aspen for 13 years. I'm in my 13th year now. Lived a variety of places before moving to Aspen, but primarily grew up in Toronto. And I have been involved in a pretty big variety of businesses in my time in Aspen. I started a restaurant called Hops Culture on the Hyman Mall about 8 or 9 years ago. I work in the real estate and development businesses. I own a title and escrow company. And I met my wife Lisa in Aspen. We're raising 3 young kids here. They're currently 6, 4, and almost 2 years old. And I've been pretty involved in the community throughout my time here. I used to chair a citizens board called the Commercial Core and Lodging Commission, CCLC. I've served on various other boards of nonprofits, and have tried and continue to try to be a meaningful member of the community in everything that I do here.
Well, between your family and your job, why now? Why would you throw your hat into the ring?
Yeah, great question. I'm busy, but certainly feel that I can do this and have thought long and hard about it. I think it all comes down to giving back to the community, and I think I have a certain skill set and a certain set of experiences that this community, Aspen, can really benefit from at this point in time. I've always been passionate about Aspen and our local issues and how we've approached those issues. I sort of joke that I've never missed reading both newspapers in my almost 13 years here. I really fundamentally understand the issues, and I've put in the time to make sure that I understand all perspectives on the issues. And I feel like right now I can give back in a meaningful way and make a difference. So despite it being a busy time in my life, I've thought a lot about how to fit this commitment in and make a difference in the community that I love so deeply. And so now felt like the right time.
You know, at the Aspen Chamber, our vision for the organization is to create an environment for Aspen to thrive. So that's sort of the big overarching mission, or vision, excuse me. So what is your vision of Aspen?
Yeah, my vision of Aspen is a slightly enhanced version of what we have right now, not a changed version. I love Aspen for what it is, and I've always loved Aspen for what it is. And I don't meet too many people who fundamentally want to change Aspen. And I'm not concerned so much with what others think on that. I'm concerned with what I think, which is I love Aspen for what it is, and I don't want a big departure from what it is. But there are issues facing our community right now. I think everyone sort of has their own unique set of top 3, but I think the top 10 are we're all in agreement on what those top 10 issues are. And I think that working on those issues in a way that delivers tangible results will help Aspen continue to thrive and help it be a place that we continue to love deeply. And that is a feasible, reasonable, practical place to live for many of us who have put our time in here, and who want to continue living here and want to continue thriving here. So a thriving Aspen to me means a diverse, passionate year-round community. It means obviously great access to the outdoor activities that we all love. It means having a plethora of financial opportunities to pursue business goals and ambitions the way that one chooses to. I think it means an involved and thoughtful community, and whether that means being involved in each other's sort of personal lives and being there to support one another, or being involved in local politics. I think all of those are important towards a thriving community. And I think sort of remembering our values and keeping that at top of mind in the decisions that we make will ensure that Aspen continues to thrive.
And what do you think those values are?
Yeah, I think it's being respectful to the environment that we've chosen to live in. I mean, we are not in an overbuilt urban environment necessarily. I mean, we are surrounded by national forests, so I think we have to pay deference to that. I think being thoughtful, respectful community members, to me, is one of the big values of Aspen, and you know, really caring about our neighbors and one another. I think that having a government that respects and listens and understands the diverse needs of the community is very important. And that's a value that we should remember, and that, you know, good governance matters ultimately in that regard, right? Is making sure that a variety of perspectives are represented on the council, with healthy discourse and disagreement and agreement when appropriate is happening. I think is critical.
Describe your leadership style.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of board leadership experience, particularly recently. I've served, as I mentioned, on CCLC and several other boards. So I've gained a lot of experience in both for-profit and nonprofit and sort of trade organization boards recently. And that's a little different than, you know, being an owner of a small business, which I also have experience doing. And so I think there's two different leadership styles. I think the more relevance is on the board sort of style in this potential position than in the way that I manage my private businesses. But I think number one is listening is a critical, crucial skill that I try to get better at every single day, and really making sure that I comprehend what people are saying and where they're coming from, before forming a concrete opinion. And then I think one of my absolute strengths in this role and in life in general is that I'm a decisive person. So, you know, when it is an appropriate time to form an opinion and make a decision, I do so without looking in the rearview mirror. I move forward. I analyze fairly quickly what it will take to accomplish what we are seeking to accomplish, and I try to set everyone up for success to do so.
That's great. How would you go about engaging with your constituents?
Yeah, I sort of view my constituents as everyone in this community right now, so there's no targeted segment that I have in mind. I don't know how similar or dissimilar that is to others, but I want to represent everybody, and I even want to represent people who don't have a vote in Aspen, because I think they're every bit as critical to Aspen as we are as voters in the city. You know, whether that be somebody who comes to stay in a campsite here once in 5 years, whether that be somebody who has a second home here, whether it be somebody who owns a business here that we all love but does not live in the city limits, which there are quite a few examples of.
Well, the research tells us almost 2/3 of the business owners in Aspen don't get a vote.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a pretty startling number to me.
That's tough. So I consider all of that sort of part of my constituency, and gosh, I'm trying everything to reach out and to provide opportunities for people to talk, and for me to listen. So, you know, whether that be through our social media efforts that we've been putting out, whether that be through some meet and greet things. You know, tomorrow evening, Thursday, we are doing a first of several meet and greets at Unravel Coffee, the new coffee shop at Gravity House across from the Wheeler. We'll be doing that from 3 to 5. You know, very casual, have a beer kind of and some conversation with me, opportunity for me to listen and hear from more people. I really feel that I have a diverse set of experiences in Aspen and a diverse perspective. And so that I get Aspen from a variety of angles, and I get the perspective of stakeholders from a variety of angles, and I want to hear it. Most importantly, I want to hear it.
What are you hearing? I mean, you're definitely out on the campaign trail, so you must be picking up a lot of concern or criticism, maybe even good stuff too, because it's not all bad out there. So what are you hearing on the trail?
That's right. So I'm hearing a lot about, obviously, the issues, right? So
Yeah.
everyone is feeling housing, workforce housing and affordable housing. Everybody's feeling traffic in the entrance to Aspen. Everybody's feeling affordable food and beverage and locally serving retail and locally owned retail. Those are the three issues that I've highlighted as sort of the big three that we're focusing on in this campaign.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing a lot of that, and then a lot of other issues that certainly fall into my top 10. And then I'm hearing that people really wish that there was a more balanced perspective on city council, and the opportunity for them to feel represented by at least one of the members of council. So I think that this has been a common thread amongst feedback that I've gotten, is they're just like, the listening that is happening amongst the current council feels like lip service, and doesn't feel genuine, and doesn't feel like anyone ever changes their thinking or their perspective, and that their decisions are par-baked. And so they don't really feel heard. And I've heard that a lot. And obviously that's something that I hope to change.
Yeah, I think some of that stems with like transparency and communication. So how would you try to ensure that adequate transparency and communication really between the city, the residents, and the businesses?
I would certainly make it a priority amongst staff. And I know that the city has put effort into communication. But again, as of late, it has felt that it's not that genuine. This is not individually critical of anyone. I think that if we are going to spend the time and the money gathering community input on things, which we are good at, then we actually have to digest that feedback and really consider it when we're making decisions. I think that's the piece that's really missing. So I think we are good at penetrating the community, using things like Aspen Community Voice and open houses and special websites on very large issues like the entrance to Aspen and some of these pop-up events that we've done. We're doing a good job at that on the issues where it counts. What I don't think we're necessarily doing such a great job at is listening to the feedback that comes from there.
Fair point. What do you view Aspen's like greatest strength? What makes us really stand out?
Oh God, we have so many.
I know.
Which we're so
You could
privileged
pick two
to
if
say,
you want.
right?
Yeah.
I think it really comes down to, despite being such a powerful force, internationally recognized, having incredible amenities, both physical amenities and talent amenities or intelligence amenities. Despite that, we really have a small town character.
Yeah.
And it's, I've lived in a variety of places, ranging from some of the biggest cities in the world to sort of small college towns. And it is so obvious and evident here how the small town character can translate into just like this extended family type of feel, where you make deep and accelerated friendships that I got to imagine are very difficult to make in bigger cities.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't lived in a big city in a long time now, but I just got to imagine that's difficult. So to me, I value this small town character more than anything. I value the opportunity to meet people from different walks of life, different places around the world, very different sets of life circumstances to my own, and
Yeah.
have intelligent and thoughtful and meaningful conversations. And then, of course, our physical plant, which is sort of a business term, meaning where we are and
physical
our
location.
surroundings and what physically makes up our community
Yeah.
is just second to none. I mean,
I always think-
you can go to any alpine resort around the world and it's always just like, we got it better.
Yeah, and I think the sprinkle, the secret sauce for me is always our arts and cultural community, because the type of programming that comes through our nonprofits and arts and culture, oh my God, I love it. And I'm so thankful and appreciative. And I think that does make that small town character like you talk about when you're talking to people. You're not just talking about like, hey, how are you doing? It's like, what did you think of the show at the Wheeler last night and
That's right.
the exhibit at the art museum? So we are pretty fortunate.
We're pretty,
And,
I mean, listen, when you think about Belly Up, for example,
Yeah.
right, which is a private business that on paper probably doesn't make a lot of sense, you know?
but it does.
But it works in Aspen. You know, it's Michael Goldberg and his team obviously have created an amenity that, for me at least, and
Yeah.
for many people, many other people, like this is a core part of our Aspen experience, right? And it's
Yeah.
just such an incredible amenity in our community that's driven by passion.
Yeah.
And that's just one of so many examples.
Yeah. Tell me, do you have any ideas for changes that you'd like to make to the land use code?
I don't have specific changes in mind. Here's what I can tell you about the land use code. Despite, I think, knowing it and understanding it better than the large majority of people, because it's something that I've worked in my business career, I don't believe it needs to be static, and I think it can and should evolve over time. Mm-hmm. I think that changes to it should be should involve stakeholders in the community, like developers, like architects, like builders, like engineers, and that city council's role shouldn't necessarily be leading those changes in the land use code. I think that we could get a lot further in terms of the eventual impact, hopefully positive impact on our community, by collaborating with stakeholders who live and breathe that document, which there are many very intelligent, very experienced people in this community who do so. I think we could just accomplish what we want as tangible results so much more efficiently and effectively if we collaborated on that. And that, you know, that could mean putting together a task force. That could mean a simple lunch where over 2 hours we generate some great ideas and some great feedback. I think there's a variety of ways to handle it. And I think that that theme of collaboration versus a one-sided approach is another thing that I think the city could be doing better. And I don't say that because I feel like I want a voice at the table at some of those discussions. I say that because I truly believe that the results that this community would end up with across a broad spectrum of potential issues and conversations, we would just generate so much better results if we collaborated with members of the community on making some of these changes that shape our daily life.
Okay. You've spoken out, and I saw it on your website as well, but you've spoken out against this unanimous voting track record on the council. Do you see your role on council as being that opposing view?
No, I do not want to say that. I hope to be in agreement with other council members on some things. I point out the unanimous voting track record because it really illustrates the fact that we do not have a balanced perspective or a set of perspectives on the current council, right? Mm-hmm. If we did, it would be impossible to have that level of unanimity in voting. But I'm not going to sit there and just vote no to every single thing. That's not what the job entails. The job is to critically analyze major decisions that are being presented to the city, ask questions, dig deep, and then based on where we get to, vote on something positively or negatively, depending on what it is. Mm-hmm. So I certainly do not think it's fair, nor do I want to be painted as someone who's just going to come in there, vote no just to stop progress. That is not my goal at all. My goal is to bring a different perspective, and hopefully the real work comes in before the vote happens.
Right.
And I get to say, hey, everyone, have we thought about it from this perspective? Have we asked this question? That's where I believe that I can add the most value and make sure that the whole picture is being presented. The vote is sort of the final tally, and the results of which will be considered on every individual merit and every individual vote.
Yeah.
But I certainly hope to be in alignment with other things, particular things that I'm working on and am passionate about. I want to, of course, and I will need buy-in from
Yeah.
the other four.
Right. Of these 70, I think there were 71 votes. 70 of them were unanimous. Which ones do you think you would have been a dissenting factor on?
Well, let's use, I think a lot of people heard my name who didn't already know me because of my pretty vocal opposition to the building moratorium of 2022. Mm-hmm. And so we'll use that as an example. And what I did there was I got involved as a citizen, and I pursued a process that's part of our city charter called a citizens initiated ordinance. And the intention of that ordinance was basically to bring this issue to a community-wide vote rather than a council-only vote.
Yeah.
And so I certainly would have dissented with the concept of a moratorium because I think that the results that we could have and would have ended up with by including stakeholders in the community in a conversation about what our problems are and how we can, what kind of results would make meaningful progress towards addressing those problems, I just think we would have gotten so much further and had better buy-in from everybody and had tangible results that we could be proud of as a community, not a divided community where it's like we're penalizing one group, but to the benefit of whom? And what are those benefits? It's very unclear to me.
Yeah.
So I would have certainly voted no.
That's a good example. It takes 3 votes to get anything done in this town. How are you going to bring along the other members to maybe get some of the projects and the priorities that you have to the forefront?
Yeah, so I'm acutely aware of that, of course.
It's math.
And,
it always comes down to math.
I don't think anyone wants a dictatorship. That's why we believe in democracy in this country and in this community. And hopefully a lot of different perspectives can be represented in these 5 votes. I've met with everyone on council throughout this process, and I think here's what I've taken away from it. We are not far apart on the issues at all. I think where we diverge is how we would work towards improving on those issues. What are the processes and the steps that we believe could generate tangible results? So in my mind, if we all agree what the problem is, and we can figure out what would feel good in terms of improvements towards that problem, I'm hesitant to use the word solutions, by the way, because I think some of the problems that we talk about in this community are chronic problems that there probably is no one solution to forever. Traffic, for example, like we're never going to fully solve traffic in Aspen. We can improve traffic, never going to fully solve it.
Yeah.
Housing's another example. Anyhow, so I believe that working collaboratively on a board together, that if we understand what the problems are and we agree on what the problems are, and we can work together to figure out what feels good in terms of making progress on those problems, then I can get some buy-in on the process to get us there. I think that's a lot of what's missing today, is that the process is not getting us to tangible results.
Okay.
And my business experience and life experience, I think, can help with that.
Let's see. We only have about 5 minutes left. So how do you intend to balance the needs of our local businesses, our residents, and the tourist?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is just understanding those needs and truly hearing and listening and comprehending those needs. It's probably true that in most big decisions that affect the city of Aspen, like, you cannot 100% satisfy everybody, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't at least acknowledge and understand those that aren't being satisfied and are being who have negative impacts on various situations. And I think that's where we could improve in a major way, is just really listening, getting there, and making decisions where you're aware of all the potential ramifications. You know, there was one, I'll try to be brief with this, I know we're tight on time, but I had one conversation during my opposition to the moratorium where I was like, there are true negative impacts and pain and suffering that is going to be imposed on a lot of people as a result of this moratorium. And one of the questions that I received back was like, who could possibly be negatively affected by that? So there was clearly a disconnect between what they were trying to do and then the impact of what they were doing. And it was like, listen, there are times where you have to make hard decisions that impact people negatively. I understand that. But you need to be aware of what kind of negative impacts you're imposing.
I would agree. Well, I had a lot more questions for you, so we're going to get you good when we do the election forum in person here in a couple weeks. And we'll have more information for our studio audience as to where and when we'll be having that debate in the forum. I have one quick last question for you. You've come out and said that you're not for the modified I don't want to say straight shot, the modified on the CASA
preferred alternative is what they're calling it.
Can you vote on that preferred alternative to send it to a vote with the proximity of where you live?
Yeah, I would certainly want to consult with Jim True on that if we got to a vote. But I believe that even long prior to any potential vote, I could. I think that there's a lot of process work that we could do in making sure that we've analyzed the appropriate options for today in Aspen, not a 20-plus-year-old analysis, and work towards some solutions there. So again, when it ultimately comes to voting, I think that that's something I would need to consult with the city attorney on, but I believe that there's a lot of positive work that could be done prior to any vote.
Bill, you have a great website. Tell our listener, our audience, where they can go find more information.
Yes, please do. Bill for Aspen, FOR Aspen.com.
Great.
And would appreciate everyone taking some time to further educate themselves, and hope that I can have your support in representing our community. Yeah, there are so many issues and so many things. I could spend an hour with you easily. The election's March 7th. Ballots are mailed on February 14th. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Aspen Affairs. I'm Debbie Braun. You can catch all of our interviews with the Aspen candidates for mayor and council on GrassRoots TV or aspenchamber.org. Make it a great day. Thanks for joining us. Thank you.